Hey everyone, welcome into episode 6 of the Prep Baseball Wisconsin WIAA podcast. I'm Max Durst here with my partner David Yo. We are entering the final 2 weeks of the regular season in the WIAA, coming down the stretch here, getting some teams organized, and playoff seeding meetings are coming up here in the next couple of days. So we'll be ready to go for the playoff time and ready to conclude the regular season. David, you and I got to go out Saturday to Sun Prairie East High School, taking really 4 games between 4 Division I teams, and it was pretty competitive for the most part. And we have some stuff to break down from that.
Yeah, good day of baseball. We had Sun Prairie East, of course, undefeated right now 20-0 after the day. Sussex Hamilton was there, Hudson, who's always good. So a lot of good teams and good baseball all around.
For sure. And you got to take in Sun Prairie East, obviously the number one team in the state, still undefeated, and you got to see Drew Kavanaugh, who was the Prep Baseball Wisconsin Pitcher of the Week in the prior week, and he was up to back to doing his thing really.
Yeah, I was saying to you, he just quietly dominated. Like I didn't even realize that he had a perfect game, but kept Sussex Hamilton off balance. He's not an overpowering guy, but he was around the zone the whole time and 6 strikeouts, so more than one an inning. So it's not like he was getting all ground balls or all fly balls, and things were just going into the gloves. But he was very good and just kind of one of those quietly good outings. He was a 10-0 run rule game, 5 inning, perfect game from Drew Kavanaugh. So that was definitely something that I didn't expect to see going into Saturday, especially against a pretty good team in Hamilton.
Right, for sure. And I think that's the Cardinals, like that's their entire really pitching staff. Like they just quietly go about their business, but they're super energetic and super competitive at the same time. And I think that's kind of what we saw Joey Tamboli. We saw him earlier in the year, but really now in a starting role, and he really took on the day and was super impressive in my opinion. Just competitive and almost threw a complete game for the most part. I believe it was 6.2 innings, and he was upper 70s, maybe touching the low 80 at some point, but utilized breaking ball, changed up. He was mixing really well. He was very effective for Sun Prairie East. Good command, obviously, and really attacked those Watertown hitters. They jumped on him early. They forced him into some trouble early on, but then really he kind of settled in, and from that there on, like he relied on their defense and really his competitiveness to get the win.
Yeah, yeah. What impressed me about Tamboli was he also battled. He didn't just have that easy start where like Kavanaugh didn't really face any trouble or didn't face any trouble at all, but Tamboli did early on, and a couple runs got in that first inning, second inning, but he was able to battle from it. 3-2 count, and he walks a guy, walks in a run, but then he bounced back from that even after some calls that at least his coach didn't think the umpire gave him. And so to see Tamboli as a sophomore be able to withstand a little bit of that trouble early on and then settle in, I thought was pretty impressive. And he's someone that he's ranked number 65 right now in our 2026 class, and I expect some big things from him because I think, especially as he adds velo, he's somebody that's going to play. He's around the zone, good life on the fastball, good feel for the breaking ball. I think he's someone that's going to progress as he throws in maybe the mid 80s.
For sure. And I think it's that same under the radar mentality and approach. They utilized a lot of small ball on Saturday. But then going to guys like Max Glusick and John Hadley really as their main offensive run producers, and guys who really veteran leaders who have stepped up for them and have really emerged as star players in the WIAA. Hadley, a UWM commit, going to play college baseball next year. He had a couple of good swings yesterday. Same goes for Max Glusick, uncommitted 2025. Played a really smooth shortstop in my opinion, and really all of that put together, I think that's how they're at a 20-0 record right now.
Yeah, yeah, I really liked Glusick. I liked Hadley. I also would like to mention that he's John Hadley the sixth, which is pretty cool, I think. He's number 69 in our class, our senior class right now. But I really like that swing at first base, good actions, and he impressed me. Glusig also very balanced at the plate. Definitely a guy that I would recruit if I had my own college program. And he's number 43 in the junior class. So they've got some nice position players. They're not a team that's got a ton of star power, but they work well with what they've got. They've got a pretty deep lineup. They've got a deep pitching staff. And you said they play small ball. When they get a runner on third, less than 2 outs, it feels like maybe there's about a 50% chance that they're going to try a squeeze play, and they execute. They had some really good bunts. They got guys in, forced the defense to make a play, and oftentimes at high school baseball in Wisconsin, they're gonna miss. They're not gonna make the play every time, and Sun Prairie East always putting pressure on them, putting the ball in play. That's what they do, and that's why they're 20-0.
For sure. And I kind of wanted to transition into a Watertown group that I believe gave them a challenge, really, in that latter half of the doubleheader on Saturday. They got out to a lead early and really kind of ran out of some pitching and offensive momentum to be able to withstand that and uphold their rhythm really at the plate. But honestly, what they did against Hudson and taking them down in a back and forth game and having to battle with the number 16 team ranked in the state. Both the Hurchin brothers, I believe, were pretty impressive at the plate. They produced at a consistent rate and really continued to elevate their status in the 2025 class for sure. Calvin looked great behind the plate with pop times really low and good footwork and a really strong arm. He also looked good in the batter's box and being able to barrel up baseballs pretty consistently. And Jacob was pretty much the same thing from the left side of the plate. And then I was really impressed with Cameron Kranz. He had a couple of doubles, really smooth left-handed swing. He had a couple of doubles against Hudson and really kind of was the difference maker. And he was really smooth around first base. Made a couple of picks that were nice and really could move laterally. And that really impressed me. So I think they're going to be a team to watch here, come down the stretch and really into their playoff rhythm that we see here in the final 2 weeks. And honestly, it was kind of the same thing really you saw for Sussex Hamilton too in that matchup.
Yeah, Hamilton obviously came out a little bit flat, not getting a base runner in that first game, 10-0 loss. But I did like Colin Robick, who was their starting pitcher in that game one matchup. He's a lefty. He's a 2025 guy. He's probably not going to get as much attention because he's not a super hard thrower. He was 78 to 80, but he had a really clean, easy delivery. It seemed like he could maybe add a little bit in terms of projection as he grows into his body a little bit more. He could maybe be a low to mid 80s guy, and I think if he does that, he could be a nice college arm. Really good changeup. Was locating that well. Breaking ball had some big movement and was able to land for a strike. And really wasn't until around the third time through the order that Sun Prairie East started to get to him. He's not someone that we have ranked, but he's someone that I liked from Hamilton, and he's a nice arm. Another guy that both of us were intrigued by, Brady York. He's a sophomore that we saw in that second game against Hudson, and he was a tall righty that was up to 84 miles an hour, got long levers. Seems like the kind of guy that in a year or two he could be maybe touching 90.
Right, I agree. And he was also competitive. Had to battle some command issues, I'd say. But again, latter half of a doubleheader, long day of baseball. He really took on those relief innings, though. I think he threw three and a third to close out that game and get an upset win for Sussex on really a day where they did come out flat and got defeated by Sun Prairie East. But yeah, Brady, he looked really good. And there was some whip and a couple of off-speed things that could continue to develop in his arsenal, where I think he's has a lot of upside for a sophomore at the moment.
Yeah, really liked him. And then Hudson, you saw a little bit more of Hudson and Logan Hagman, someone that we've been in on Hunter Carlson. So who are some of the standouts for Hudson?
Yeah, I'd say those two. They lost both games of that doubleheader, but they were still very competitive. And both games were really close. Just kind of ran out of some pitching depth at the end. But yeah, Logan Hagman really was a staple in that lineup at the top of the order. And he went 5 for 8 with 2 doubles, 2 home runs, and 4 RBIs. And he was really clutch when they needed it. Like in that Sussex Hamilton game, he got a hanging curveball against Brady York and was able to hit a home run. And that was really Brady's only blemish of his relief outing, was coming from Hagman, and he started out the day with a leadoff home run, both of which to left field. Really a lot of pull side power, a lot of whip in his swing, and just natural strength, really, that's advanced for a freshman. I was really impressed by him. And Hunter Carlson was more of the same. And he continues to produce. Wichita State commit. He's always on the barrel and super competitive at the plate. Even in that last at bat against Sussex Hamilton, down by 4, it had to have been a 10 pitch at bat, really. He was fouling off pitches, and that's a lot of what he did all day. He was a tough out, and he's going to continue to be a really important piece in the middle of the order for Hudson.
Yeah, Hudson, they lost both their games, but they've got some nice pieces and definitely a good team. They also, you have to think, may not have had the upper hand when you're driving, how far is that, 3 hours maybe, from 3.5 hours from Hudson down to Sun Prairie on a Saturday morning. I think we were saying they left around 6 a.m. is what we heard. So they're probably going to come out a little bit flat with that. And they've also been, I think that this was their 5th and 6th games of the week. So I think you maybe add a little bit of context as to why Hudson wasn't able to quite put it together on Saturday.
For sure. And that kind of rounded out what we saw on Saturday. I thought it was a lot of good. I believe there were 3 home runs hit, 2 of which were by Hagman, but I think there were 3 home runs hit in total. And obviously, Sun Prairie East led the way, staying undefeated. So I think we saw a lot of good stuff. And that kind of transitioned us into some of the notable performances from the week. So I was following along with some of the undefeated teams still. Again, as we mentioned before, only 2 weeks left really in the regular season. And a lot of it coming from the lower enrollment schools, Division 4 schools, really, between Bangor and Pittsville. They're both in the same regional, which will bode well. I'm very interested to see how they're ranked and shaped out in the playoff seeding meetings and that stuff. But both of those teams are undefeated. Bangor's really been impressive. They have a couple of prospects who have really stood out, including Bryce Peterson. He's a 2025 uncommitted infielder, and he's been really good at the top of the order for them. They're off to a 13-0 start, and they've really blown out everyone that they've had to face early on. And Pittsville has been more of the same. They're actually 19-0, like almost the most wins in the WIAA at this point. And Dawson Luther has been a really good prospect for them. I believe he's a 2025 as well, and we're very curious to see how he develops, really, and really what team can emerge from there. And then Kiel is making a push towards the Power 25, in my opinion. They are currently in the state undefeated. They're 17-0 in state after dropping 3 games out of state early on this year. And they made it to state last year as a Division 3 team, and I think they have a legit chance to do the same thing in Division 2, which would be pretty impressive and really awesome to see, I'd say. And then Stevens Point has quietly become 20-0, matching Sun Prairie East for the most wins in the WIA, and that has been a really big surprise. Like, they have dominated their competition, and once again for the 2nd straight year, they aren't losing much at all, and they're going to keep climbing in our rankings. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see them in Appleton come towards the end of the year.
Yeah, love me some success from the small enrollment schools. I feel like I have to bring that up at some point in every episode. But Bangor, Pittsville, Kiel, Stevens Point, we'll see which of them emerge, or if all of them emerge late in the year as we get towards playoffs. One Milwaukee area school that is a higher enrollment school that is doing well is Muskego. They seem like they've got prospects left and right, more so I would say even in the 2026 and 27 classes, but they're doing really well, and they're still undefeated. What did you see out of Muskego this week?
Right, our staff was able to go to their doubleheader against Oconomowoc, and they had to face really good arms, obviously, what Oconomowoc is bringing, and they were still able to manage and manufacture runs and be able to limit Oconomowoc, who I believe has a really good offense too, and get 2 wins in a really big-time doubleheader, 2 close wins, and continue their undefeated stretch here that they've been on. And then they took down a really good Germantown team on that Saturday night, and I believe 5-3 final score. And they continue to win. They're about to a 17-1 record now and are really emerging as a solid top three team in the state.
So if right now in what is it 2024, they're one of the best teams in the state, but almost all their players are like sophomores and freshmen, or I should say their best prospects: Ben Kuglich, Tyson Grolkowski, Kyle Rogozinski, Maddox Lassard. I'm sure I'm forgetting more. How good are they going to be in next year or 2 years?
Right, exactly. And they have like guys like Brock Lulowitz and Braden Horn as seniors right now leading the way, but they're just pretty much showing them the future right there. And there are just a ton of prospects right now from Muskego that are really performing at a high level on the varsity stage, with which I think it weighs a lot. And that's super important to see and really speaks to how talented they are. So really they're gonna continue to fight, and again, seeing them at the state tournament and sectionals will be a really fun watch for sure.
Yeah, our couple players of the week, or I guess we have one position player of the week, a couple pitchers of the week. One guy, Matthew O'Grady from Badger. He started the week 7 for 8 with 4 extra base hits, 7 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, had 4 more hits later on. Talk to me a little bit about O'Grady, his week, and then also Badger, because Badger's not a school that I've really heard much about, but they're 17-2 now. They're really hitting their stride late in the year. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Badger got off to a really like strong undefeated stretch and jumped up really high in our Power 25 rankings. They dropped a couple of games a couple of weeks ago, but have once again found their stride. And Matthew O'Grady has been the leader within that, I'd say, from an offensive perspective. He usually in the leadoff spot, I believe they've moved him down to 3 and 4 now, just as a powerful bat. And he's a really good defensive outfielder. He already had that going. We had him down at the junior future games a couple of years ago, and he has only gotten better since then, really. And very aggressive at the plate, has some pop too, which obviously with 2 doubles, home run, 4 extra base hits in general, he's become really one of their mainstays in the middle of that order on a really pushing towards the top 15 really in the state. And Badger continues to they continue to really impress and in the southeast portion of the state, and they're gonna have their work cut out for them here in the next couple of weeks, but I think they got a legit shot.
Yeah, and then who are the 2 pitchers of the week? We had a couple more 5-inning perfect games. Who are the 2? Or I guess we probably want to put Drew Kavanaugh in there too. Pitchers of the week.
Right, so yeah, following up from Kavanaugh, but earlier in the week, Jack Zeller, he was a former future gamer last year, 2025 out of Kenosha Indian Trail. He defeated pretty much single-handedly Kenosha Bradford. He struck out 14 out of the 15 batters he faced, which honestly is one of the most impressive stat lines of the season, I'd say. 5-inning perfect game. It was a 13-0 win for Indian Trail, who swept Kenosha Bradford this week. And then Joseph Herrick, I believe earlier in the week for Franklin, he did pretty much the exact same thing. It was a 15-0 win over Racine Horlick. Herrick struck out 9 batters on of the 15 he faced, and really he continues. He was part of a stretch for Franklin. They shut out Racine Horlick 3 straight times this week and really just dominated them over the course of their 3 games in that series. And Herrick, again, has been a mainstay, really. Minnesota Duluth commit in that pitching rotation, and Franklin continues to stack up wins. Same with Indian Trail, and they battled this week, and I'll be super curious to see who comes out on top in that 3-game series.
Yeah, definitely. And then we had some big upsets this week. I think as we're getting in later in the year, we're kind of getting a better feel on who the better teams are in the state. But obviously it's baseball. There are always some surprises. So Verona beat Monona Grove 8-5. That was a big one. Monona Grove, number 13. Sussex Hamilton, we talked about a little bit. They beat number 12 ranked Menominee Falls 2-1. Ben Moser threw a complete game. Menominee Falls had their first conference loss. I would ask a follow-up about Menominee Falls, but we've talked a lot about them, so I think our listeners are probably familiar enough with Menominee Falls, maybe a little bit tired of hearing about it. Fond du Lac over Kimberly. Kimberly lost a couple times this week, and Schwabenon over number 4 De Pere. Kimberly was ranked number 3, and that was a 12-2 loss. So I wanted to focus a little bit on those two games. Anything that you saw or you're aware of about either of those matchups?
Fond du Lac came out and they were really strong. They're an interesting Division One team in the state. Like they pretty competitive, and you have to play a really good game to beat them. Obviously the record doesn't necessarily show that all the time, but I think obviously them proving it with a 12-2 win over Kimberly, who beat Appleton North earlier in the week, and I believe had 5 games that they had to go through. But yeah, Fond du Lac with a really dominant win, and then Ashwaubenon, Eason Hurd, and that crew, they've had a bit of a down year, but obviously still very competitive. And De Pere witnessed that. They, again, had more games. De Pere stacked on a couple of more good wins at the end of the week. But, yeah, Schwabenon got to them and was able to sneak past them. And I think that's part of the nature and part of the fun of the WIAA, that every night it's really unpredictable and part of the thrill, really. And, of course, as we come down the stretch here, last 2 weeks and then going into playoffs, like that's where some of the results get a little tipped, and seasons kind of come up short when they didn't necessarily expect it.
Do you think it's just a Wisconsin thing to describe a big upset as just sneaking past you?
I think so, yeah.
You think so?
I think so, yep. I would say so, yep, in my Wisconsin background for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at this point in the episode, we're going to transition to our interview with CJ Koehler. CJ runs the baseball portion of Valley Sports Academy and enjoyed the conversation, talking about his upbringing at Grafton, talking about playing for Coach Durst over there at Grafton, and then his transition into the college game, and now getting involved in some training and with this big indoor facility in the Chippewa Valley. So here's our conversation with CJ Koehler.
Excited to have CJ Koehler here on the podcast for an interview. He is the director of baseball, pretty much operations at Valley Sports Academy up in the Eau Claire area. CJ, how are you doing today?
Good, doing well, Maddox. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and you've done some great work, especially in the Eau Claire area and just baseball in Wisconsin in general. Can you really break down some of the details and really the description of your job with Valley Sports?
Yeah, so I've been here at Valley Sports Academy for actually June will be 2 years. So we opened in June of 2022. So been the director of baseball and actually recently added director of softball operations to my role. So just doing more on the operations side, like you said. So kind of my role here at Valley Sports Academy is kind of everything, especially on the baseball side. I'm in charge. We've got travel teams right now, so we started that at a younger ages. So we have our Guardians travel teams, like we have 10, 12U, 13U. So in charge of that program, also in charge of our facility here on the baseball, softball side, scheduling, getting local high schools in here, local organizations, just trying to connect the relationships with them as well. And then we also host a lot of tournaments here at VSA, and yeah, kind of just in charge of anything and everything baseball, softball, lessons, camps. We do lots of different training opportunities here too. So.
For sure. Could you describe some of the really expansion for Valley Sports? I think it's taken off really in the last 2 years, just in the Eau Claire area, and how you guys have created that.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say we're really fortunate. I mean, I was really fortunate to be able to get this position and be here. So I mean, I think we're really unique as far as a training facility goes. We've got our baseball side of our facility, which we've got a base fully turfed infield, plays 160 feet down the lines, 220 to center with a 33-foot ceiling. So we can do basically what we say is 12U and under for baseball. Softball, we do all high school scrimmages and all that. Then we've got our 7 batting cages and 6 bullpen lanes. And then in the middle of our facility, we have a studio hockey rink, and on the far side, soccer field house. And then we've actually recently expanded our upstairs, added like golf simulators, bar area, and then this summer they're adding a full-size hockey rink to the back of our facility here. So that's kind of phase 2. of the different phases that our owner has planned. So yeah, just continuing to grow and just trying to provide opportunities for kids in the Chippewa Valley here. Again, whether it's baseball, softball, soccer, hockey, lots of different things that we can do here, and just a really high quality staff in all sports.
Looking at the more broader picture, how have you seen a change over the last like 5-10 years with the rise of facilities like this where players can go in at a younger age? I mean, when I was younger, it was going to a warehouse maybe starting in mid-January or so. So how have you seen that change with player development and having more opportunity to develop with baseball specifically?
Yeah, I mean, number one, like you said, and I mean, number one is just the opportunity. And I also think like it's the coaching, right? I think the high level coaching that these kids are getting at younger and younger levels is influencing everything once they get to high school, right? And just preparing kids better for high school and college. The opportunity, here we're fall, winter, spring, summer, right? We're basically year round on the baseball side. And David, like you said, I mean, I didn't have that growing up. You didn't have that, and to be able to come into a facility, fully turfed infield year round, and just get those reps and get that high quality training. I think the other thing that's really unique about the experience is being year round, you can tailor different times a year to different skills and just really dive deep into position specific trainings and just lots of different movement patterns and all of that to train those athletes to become better athletes for all sports, honestly.
So I guess to go off of that, to the parent that says, well, training in the off season is detrimental because he is playing basketball in the winter normally or is playing football in the fall. What would you say to that parent that you might want to sell them not only on you as being part of this business, but really in the best interest of the kid and wanting him to develop the most? How would you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, and all of us here, like, I am all for it. I mean, play multiple sports. I think what we're trying to create on the baseball side, whatever sport it is, you're trying to create an athlete, right? You're trying to create someone that can move, be athletic in different things, and playing multiple sports allows you to do that. And it also, to me, brings a competitiveness that kids need to learn and develop as part of it. So I'm all for playing those multiple sports, but I also think, like, yeah, play your football, play your basketball in the winter, right? But when you have the opportunity, if you have a facility like this, you have the high level coaches, like, when you can, take advantage of that, because I think nowadays you have to excel and to make the gains and growth that kids need to make their high school team, to play in college. You have to do those trainings year round nowadays. That's just the kind of the way it's going and the way it is.
Yeah, and then CJ, you're surrounded by the high school baseball scene up in Chippewa Valley and really up in that area. Could you tell us really this spring and even over the winter a little bit who has impressed you, whether that's individually or you host team practices obviously too?
Right.
Who has really impressed you in the Eau Claire area from that group this spring?
I think one arm that just always stands out when he's here is Giles Grudhausen from Flambeau. I mean, it's a hike even to us for him, but he always stands out when he's here. I mean, he's having a nice year again. I think, one team that I would kind of keep an eye on, and I know they've struggled a little bit here in the Big Rivers, but they have two arms that are really good, is Chippewa Falls. I mean, they've got Easton Bob, who's going to St. Thomas. Jake LaQuay is going, I think, MATC. But those two, I mean, I would put them up there with anyone in the Big Rivers arm-wise. I mean, they can compete every Tuesday, Thursday in the Big Rivers. So I keep an eye on them. Altoona, they're always, Craig Walters he's just bringing kids after kids over there. Trent Cornell, really solid kid, solid player. Bennett Stocky, another one over there. Yeah, and then I think, like, Eau Claire North has had a nice year here. They've kind of, I think, surprised some people in this area. I think Chase Watkins has had a really good year. I think he's kind of carried more and just put more on himself and really shown that leadership and really, he's carried them to some wins and done a really nice job for them. So, yeah.
For sure. And to follow up on that, I wanted to ask, do you have one word or one phrase really to describe like baseball players from the Chippewa Valley, like what you've seen?
Yeah, I would say tough-minded, tough-nosed. I think that, I think whether it's your Eau Claire North, your Memorial, Chippewa, or the smaller towns, Oliva Strum, Carter Gunderson, right, and their group over there, I think it's just tough-nosed. The kids around here, they're gonna bust their butt. They're gonna play hard every single day. I went Bloomer, right? I mean, there's another smaller town that I went and saw. They're hard nosed. They get some good wins. They beat some teams that you probably wouldn't think. But yeah, I think tough nose. I think kids around here, they really enjoy baseball. They enjoy getting the opportunity to compete. I think that's a big part of it too, is just how they've grown up. They want to compete for everything and really work hard.
I'm curious what your background is in baseball. I don't think we talked about that at the beginning, but did you grow up in the Chippewa Valley area? I'm sure you grew up playing the game. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I grew up in Grafton. Was fortunate enough to be coached by Maddox's dad, Coach Durst, the legend over there at Grafton High School. So yeah, grew up in Grafton, Wisconsin, just north of Milwaukee there. Had a nice high school career there. We went to state 2010. Actually went up to college then here at UW Eau Claire. While in college, was actually helped out at Eau Claire Memorial with David Sparger at the time. He had some good teams with Jake Sparger at that time, and also was coaching then in the summer as the high school season in the Milwaukee area was still summer ball. So would go home and then coach at Port Washington High School as an assistant. And then I took over in Port Washington in 2016. I was a head coach there for 3 years. Had a nice little run. I mean, we got improvement every year. Again, was really lucky. Got to coach George Clausen, who's actually having an awesome year with the Phillies right now too. So he was a special kid, a special arm to coach at Port Washington. And then went up to Finlandia University up in the UP to get into the college coaching ranks. So I was up there in 2020, the COVID year. Obviously cut that short. And then was really lucky. UW Eau Claire was bringing the program back in 2021 for that season, and was assistant coach here for 3 years. So at UW Eau Claire from 2021 to last year, and then taken over here at VSA, Valley Sports Academy. I've been doing that since 2022 and just kind of been running the show here and trying to grow that side of it and just providing those opportunities for kids year round. And I mean, the other big thing we're really trying to do is keep the kids here, because that's one thing we've noticed in the Chippewa Valley is kids go to Blizzard, they go to MASH, they go to GRB, wherever, right? So really trying to grow that and keep kids here in the Chippewa Valley.
For sure. And really, I think a lot of these players right now in high school, like pursuing a career in sports management, continuing to work in the game of baseball once their playing career is done is definitely a possibility. Do you have advice for like people trying to get into this field, or what to really look for to study?
Yeah, I think number one would just be like never stop working and never stop. Always put yourself out there. I think that's also really important. You have to create connections in the baseball world, in the coaching world, sports management, whatever it is. Ultimately, what your job is connecting with people, whether it's connecting with athletes, other coaches, facilities. So put yourself out there and create those relationships with people, and then never stop. I think the coaching world, the sports management world, it can be unrewarding financially or whatever at the beginning, right? But if that's your true passion, that's what you love to do, never stop. And just show your passion and be where your feet are. That's something too. I mean, you can't take that for granted. Like, be thankful every step that you get to take, and focus on being the best that you can at that spot right now. And then who knows what can come up in the future. So
Before we finish, there was a conversation Maddox and I were having yesterday, but which city do you prefer, Port Washington or Grafton?
which city or school?
Or either, I guess.
Oh gosh. I gotta say I gotta go Grafton. I grew up there. I gotta stay strong there. I'll stick with my Grafton Blackhawks. The community there is just always embraced myself, my family. So I think I'll always be a Blackhawk.
We appreciate that, CJ. Appreciate that a lot.
Thanks to CJ Koehler for joining us on today's episode. Enjoyed hearing from him, hearing about the travel ball scene, the high school scene up in the Eau Claire area, and a little bit about his journey. I always enjoy hearing about the journey of coaches, players, people who work in baseball. It's good to hear from him and great to talk with him. At this point in the week, we've got our upcoming games of the week for this week, May 13th through May 18th. Some big matchups with the end of the regular season coming up. And to start the week, two big games. Manitowoc Lincoln plays De Pere on Monday, as do Verona and Madison Memorial. Maddox, what can we expect to see from those two?
Yeah, so first off, Madison Memorial took it to Verona in the past week. They beat them 13-0, and Madison Memorial has once again got on a little bit of a winning streak, and they continue to enjoy a really strong season. So I'll be curious to see how Verona bounces back from that and really responds, because they're, once again, still a competitive group with a really good pitching staff and really some strong bats in that lineup. And then the Manitowoc Lincoln and De Pere game is really a battle between two top 10 teams in the state. Again, like within that conference, we've talked about it all year on this podcast about how competitive it is. And I think this will just once again be another example. We saw Craig Cabot and Avery Duncan throw no-hitters against each other's teams last week, and I think guys like Noah Weck, Easton Arndt, Axel Donaldson will kind of match that. Offense runs, they'll be hard to come by in that game, but I'm super excited to see the result.
Yeah, and then later in the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Wisconsin Lutheran and New Berlin Eisenhower play. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Kenosha Indian Trail and Franklin. And then on Wednesday, we've also got University School of Milwaukee against Lake Country Lutheran, St. Thomas More, Kenosha St. Joseph, and Waupun against Kettle Moraine Lutheran. So tell me a little bit about those matchups, who you're excited to see.
So the last three you listed off pretty much determine conference champions. Like, those are the top two teams in their respective conferences and have proven to be competitive games already. I believe all the teams have already played once, and now they're going back at it a second time, and really that determines who comes out on top in that conference. And the same goes for Indian Trail and Franklin, who are both chasing Oak Creek right now for that second place spot. And then Wisconsin Lutheran and New Berlin Eisenhower will also be battling for a first place spot in the Woodland West. And Wisconsin Lutheran took down Pewaukee twice last week. Those were two really impressive wins. Eisenhower split with Pewaukee, but still remains atop that conference. And both those teams within our Power 25, again, they're super competitive. Lots of young, talented arms within that group, but also a bunch of veterans who have really performed well. Guys like Eddie Reinders and Jake Ross, but also Austin Drania. And then you pair like Caleb Johns and Jarrett Hall really against guys like Eli Dreyer. So it should be a really fun matchup. It will be for years to come, but really, again, the Woodland West, we talked about before a couple of weeks ago about how strong that conference is. Those two games will only showcase that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see University School of Milwaukee and Lake Country Lutheran, my Midwest Classic Conference. We'll see who comes out on top. I think they're both still undefeated, or at least last time I checked, they both were. And LCL enduring that coaching change mid-season. So pretty big matchup there, or at least in my heart, it's a pretty big matchup.
No, for sure. Lake Country Lutheran beat them last week, so I'll be, again, curious to see how University School kind of bounces back from that and what they can put together. Okay.
So, yeah, I checked it early last week and then sagged off a little bit on my coverage of the Midwest Classic Conference. I apologize.
That's all good.
But then to cap off the week, Altoona and River Falls play Friday, and Stevens Point to Pierre on Saturday, as well as Kimberly Oak Creek. Kimberly Oak Creek, that looks like a really good matchup. So that one, the other two, tell me a little bit about what you're looking for late in the week.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, the first two games you mentioned are going to be really good, but I think Kimberly and Oak Creek is going to emerge as a really fun matchup to witness, and they play yearly. So obviously a lot of competition. Two of really the top schools, I'd say, in the state of Wisconsin, enrollment wise, and just really two powerhouses going at it and trying to battle on a Saturday non-conference game, which I think will be super entertaining for the most part. And we touched on De Pere already, and Spash and Altoona and River Falls were mentioned before too, and they're, again, like, those are 6 teams mentioned there that are all super strong, and we'll definitely be making strong pushes here as we conclude the season.
Yeah, so crazy to believe now we're only in the final weeks of the regular season here in Wisconsin. Some playoff seedings could be decided already within the next week or two. Conference championships up for grabs. So we're heading into the final stretch, heading into almost postseason time. Maddox, before we go, any final thoughts? Any last things you want to add?
I'm super excited for this upcoming slate of games. Like, I did not include a few games just for time purposes that really should be included on here, and it's going to be very entertaining to watch. And I don't know, I kind of got a taste of it at Sun Prairie East, and I'm hungry for more. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm excited. We both have a little more time this week to maybe go out and see some games, less classwork for us, and yeah, should be a good week. So we're looking forward to it. We'll be back next week, as always, with the PBR Wisconsin podcast and recapping this big week of games and then previewing the final week of the regular season. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time to listen. And until next time, David Go and Maddox Durst signing off.